My name is Vanessa Osorio, and I'm a Contaminated Sites Officer with the Site Remediation Program, with my focus on site identification. Next slide, please. In Departure Bay, Nanaimo, you can find this iconic archway by Snuneymuxw artist Joel Good, which depicts a frog uniting two beautifully carved totems. It's a mark of the Snuneymuxw traditional territory and a welcome to visitors who almost always come from the sea, according to their history. As a guest on these lands, I am grateful to live on the ancestral, unceded territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation in what is now known as Nanaimo. As a member of this beautiful and diverse community, I value the enduring peace, presence, culture, and contributions of the Snuneymuxw people. I recognize my responsibility to help foster a sense of place where Indigenous voices are heard, respected, and valued. And I commit to deepening my understanding of the Indigenous history and culture of these lands, and to supporting reconciliation by engaging in community with a spirit of truth, respect, and shared stewardship. Next slide, please. So to open our time together in a good way, let's take a moment to remember and acknowledge all of the Indigenous peoples whose lands we gather on. Please head over to Mentimeter to share which traditional territory you're calling in from. The link and the QR code are in the chat now. We ask that you keep Menti open in a separate window or on your phone during the session, as we'll be coming back to it several times. If you close it by mistake, that's totally fine. You can click the link in the chat to get back to it. To learn more about the traditional lands you're on, you can visit native-land.ca, which is an interactive map that helps you identify the territories, languages, and treaties in your area. The link to Native Land is also in the chat. Got quite a few different nations that you're calling in from, which is great. Great to see. Fort Nelson. We've got Kongan, Squamish, Okanagan, and Silix. Tsawwassen, Semiahmoo. Just a lot of different nations. This is great. Wonderful that everyone's aware of whose lands they're on. So thanks for taking a moment to acknowledge the people who've always been and continue to be stewards of these lands. So now, if you'll please take a quick moment to share in Menti one thing that you're hoping to learn or achieve from today's session. I'll give you another minute here to put in your answers, and then we'll close that up. It sounds like we've got a bunch of different ones. We've got how to do my job. People are looking to learn more about the SDS process and how submissions work. Understanding when site disclosures are required. Learning about the new process that we're implementing and what your role is. Some of you are wondering about the local government's responsibility in the SDS process. We're wondering about releases. All right, thanks. Thanks for your feedback. All right, next slide, please. Mike, if you don't mind pulling up the next slide. Great. So today's training session is designed for municipalities, regional districts, and other approving authorities. For simplicity, I'll be using the terms approving authority and approving officer to refer to those of you who receive site disclosure statements or SDS from applicants related to subdivision, zoning, development, or building. So that could be a regional district, it could be a municipality, it could be MOTI. There's a bunch of different authorities that might be involved. So we're going to give a quick recap of the site identification process for site disclosure statements and the role of the approving authority. I'm going to give an introduction to the new Site Remediation Services web app, or SRS, and the training resources that will be available. We're going to give a step-by-step tutorial on how to use the web app to process SDS, including how to sign up for BCEID and review documents through BCBox. We're going to have a guided discussion period, and finally a Q&A session to address any other questions you have. A recording of the webinar will be made available on our website closer to the launch, and we'll also send out an email with more details, so feel free to share it with any colleagues who weren't able to attend today. During the session, we ask that you keep your mics muted, as I mentioned, until the discussion and Q&A sessions. Next slide, please. So the objectives of today's session are to give you an introduction to the new SRS web app, gather your feedback on how the SRS will integrate into your current SDS processing procedures, and answer any questions that you have. We'll walk through the main features first, followed by the discussion, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So feel free to jot them down and bring them up during the Q&A. Next slide, please. So just before we get into things, let's pop back into Menti to learn a little bit more about today's group. So the first question is, what approving authority are you from? If you're from a municipality, if it's possible to include which city or municipality you're coming in from, that would be great. Great. So we got a pretty good mix of people from across BC. The Abbotsford and Mission, Powell River, Surrey, Prince George, Gibsons, Grand Forks, West Kelowna, Victoria, Delta, RDNO, Manel, SCRD, Campbell River, and Northern Rockies. That's great. It's good to see such a nice mix of local governments. All right, and the next question is, what is your role related to SDS? Do you receive and process SDS? Will you receive them and process them in the future, maybe? Or do you not work at all with SDS? And again, SDS are site disclosure statements. Right, looks like most of you do process SDS and receive them. Some of you are going to in the future, and just a couple of you don't work with SDS. All right, next slide, please. So let's begin. Let's begin with a quick recap on SDS and the role of the approving authority. Next slide, please. So from the poll, it sounds like many of you have experience receiving or reviewing SDS submitted by applicants who are seeking approval for zoning, subdivision, development, or building permits. So when somebody applies for any of these permits on a site that has had a Schedule 2 use, it triggers a requirement under Section 40 of the Environmental Management Act. In these cases, the owner or operator is required to submit a site disclosure statement to the approving authority. Now, what is Schedule 2? It's a list of commercial and industrial activities that have the potential to cause site contamination. You can find this list in the Contaminated Sites Regulation. So once an SDS is submitted, the approving officer is responsible for reviewing it for completeness, checking any exemptions that have been claimed on the form, and determining whether it needs to be forwarded to the ministry. If it does, the approving officer completes the approving authority section of the form and sends it along to us at the ministry. If you're interested in learning more about how to review SDS forms and better understand the role of the approving officer, please visit our Municipalities and Approving Authorities webpage. This page will also be updated at the launch to include guidance on using the new SRS. The link for that is in the chat there. So next slide, please. The SRS web app will be used for more than just entering SDS. It's a new database and application system that combines the site registry with a fully online application and submission system. Next slide, please. And to give you a quick idea of what that is, here is a short video intro on the app.
Are you looking for a faster, more efficient way to apply for site remediation services? Introducing the Site Remediation Services web app. The web app offers a wide range of essential and time-saving features. To begin with, SRS web app offers centralized online service. You can now submit applications for contaminated site services, site disclosure statements, notifications of independent remediation, and more, all through this single platform. The SRS web app offers real-time application tracking. With the dashboard tracking feature, you can manage your applications and track their status in real time. Streamlined workflow. The web app makes submitting forms and applications a breeze. You can create and save drafts for future use, and the app will ensure no applications get missed. Effortless document submission. The SRS web app integrates with BC Box to upload all supporting application documents, including historical documents related to your site. Getting started with the SRS web app is easy. All you need is a personal or business BCE ID to log into the web app and access BC Box. Get ready for a seamless and successful future with the Site Remediation Services web app. Want to learn more? Visit the Site Remediation Services web page.
So as the video clip showed, there are numerous benefits to the new web app. And when designing the app, we considered the challenges of our current process, which include forms being submitted incomplete or without a map, delays caused by having to email back and forth between the ministry, approving officers, and applicants to obtain corrections or missed items. Users are currently unable to save drafts to come back and work on. So once signed, the entire SDS form must be recompleted if they want to make any edits. Due to high volume, sometimes we can have slow turnarounds for processing and slow times for receiving a response from the ministry. Currently, to check a status of an SDS, you need to email an inquiry to the ministry. And there is, of course, the potential for human error when entering the SDS onto our current site registry. So the new web app aims to solve these challenges by only allowing SDS to be submitted once all of the fields are complete, removing the need for the back and forth emails by managing the entire process through the app, from applicants filling out and submitting the form, to approving officers conducting their review and submitting the SDS to the ministry, to ministry staff reviewing and accepting the SDS. Users will now be able to save drafts to come back and work on later. The streamlined in-app workflow should reduce the time required to process each SDS, so hopefully reducing the timelines there. Auto responses will now be sent to applicants and approving authorities, so there's no need for you to wait to have E&B send you a response. And you will now be able to track where the SDS is in the reviewing process right through the app. And finally, SDS will be automatically entered onto the registry after the ministry has reviewed and accepted them. And this, you can see on the right side of the slide, the SDS form as it appears in our new system. Next slide, please. Thanks. So to help you get the best use of the web app, the ministry is also rolling out a new website and some training videos. Next slide, please. You should have received an email with training materials prior to this webinar. These materials reflect what will be available on our website closer to the SRS launch. The information for municipalities and approving authorities webpage will be updated to include additional instructions on using the web application. And in the meantime, the current page still contains helpful guidance on how to review SDS. To stay informed about the launch and the availability of training resources, we highly encourage you to subscribe to Site Remediation News. And all of these links will be shared in the chat. So to use the SRS, you will need a BCE ID. If your organization doesn't already have one, A business BCEID, you can sign up by visiting bceid.ca and following the instructions. You can also direct applicants to this website where they can choose to sign up for business, personal, or basic BCEID, depending on what they need. They will need a BCEID to submit SDS forms. When you register for a business BCEID, make sure you use an email address that's checked often and that everyone on your permitting team can access. You'll receive notification and confirmation emails from the SRS web app at this email address. You are only able to register your organization once, and this sets up a business profile for the BCEID. And after you've registered, you can create additional user accounts for everyone who needs to access online services, including the app. You can find more information about setting up a BCEID on www.bceid.ca. The Business BCEID Profile and Account Management Guide is also available on their website and provides more detailed information about business BCEIDs and roles. And if you have any questions about the process, the BCEID help request form is available at the link provided. And again, all of these should be in the chat for you. And I'll now pass it over to Haley, who will walk you through using the web app to process site disclosure statements. And if you have any questions specific to this demo, feel free to post them in the chat. And if we can't get them to them now, we will carry them over to the Q&A session.
Thanks, Vanessa. So hello, everyone, and welcome. So today I'm going to walk you through how to review one of the SDS forms in our web app. So I've shared my screen. It looks like everybody can see it. I'm going to be kind of moving between different windows based on the type of role I'm playing. So hopefully that will go off without a hitch. So when an applicant submits an SDS form, I'm not going to walk through that portion of it. I'm going to walk you through kind of once it's actually been submitted and has been moved over to the municipality for their review. They're going to receive an email. And here's an example of what that email looks like where you're going to have a task assigned. So here it'll include what the application ID number is, and then you can click on this link, and that will make you open up the SRS web app and prompt you to log in using your BCID, essentially what Vanessa went over a little bit earlier. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you once you've logged in, this is what it's going to look like. So there is a series of tasks here. So these are going to be the independent SDS forms or tasks that have actually been submitted and then assigned to your municipality. And so we're going to go through and based on the example email here, which is application 966, I'm going to go into my task list and I'm going to see which application is 966. So this one is 968. That's not the one I'm looking for. I'm going to look for 966. This is it. So at this point, it is grayed out. And so what you're going to do to be able to review it and then also add your information, you're going to go over to the claim and you're going to hit the claim button. And so this will open it up so you can actually go through and you can read all of the information of the SDS form that was submitted. So you can do your review, make sure that the information in there is exactly what they need to do, making sure there's no errors, and just reviewing all of the SDS form. At this point too, we'll have access over to the BC box. So if the person has submitted their map with their submission, they're going to go into BC box. And this is where you'll see what they call buckets or folders. And so I'm looking at application 966. So I'm going to click into that one and I'm going to notice that a map has been uploaded. So I'm going to go and I'm going to download that object. It's going to open up in my browser and then I'll be able to review the map as part of the submission for this application. So I'm going to walk through two different scenarios. The first one on this one is, let's say there is actually some information missing or there's information that's required. So we're going to look at asking them to include a bit more information of their summary of planned activity. So we're going to go in after I've claimed the form. going to hit add another, and this is going to open up a notes field. Here's where we can actually submit and say, please add more information on land summary. So you can include any kind of notes here. I'm going to save it. If there is an additional information that is required that you want to send back to the applicant, here's where you can add another one. So now that I've added in asking for more information, I'm going to go down and I'm going to hit, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to include my information here. It's going to put in basic information. Stuff that you can fill out. And then the application number will be an application number that's assigned with your process. So if, let's say, the City of Vancouver or other municipalities have an application number, this is where you can enter it in. And then we'll go down in and add in our building permit. So we'll put P, number, include the date, it's submitted. So this part, because I want to go back to read more information, I'm going to hit the needs more info. So when I hit that, that is actually going to go back to the applicant, and I can just showcase what that looks like here. So this time I'm in our client or applicant portal. If I refresh, I'm going to see that 966 has additional information requested. So I'm just going to go in there, edit it. Let's add a little bit more information. And then I'm just going to resubmit that. So at this point, it's going to come back to the approving authority, and you'll have an email update just to say that there has been changes submitted and to go back in and view them. So as I can go in here, I'm going to again look for my application ID. I see it's 966 here again. I'm going to claim the form, review again the information, make sure that the information that I've requested from them is exactly what I'm looking for. And if that's going to be it, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit it to the ministry. So I'm going to hit submit to ministry, and this will send it over to the program area. Alternatively, if we do have one application come in here, one that I've already submitted before, 968, I can hit the claim button again. I've reviewed it. There's no more information that I actually need from the applicant. So what I can do is just go down to the bottom here, fill out the information that's required. Again, if there's an application number, if there isn't one, you can include there, building permit. Accepted. There. And then I can do a direct to submit to ministry, and that will go to the ministry.
Great, thank you so much, Haley, for walking us through how to use that. So that wraps up the content portion of our session. So we're now going to move into the guided discussion and Q&A segment, which is specifically intended for municipalities and approving authorities. So to help keep this part of the session focused and productive and help the breakout rooms work smoothly, we ask that any ministry staff who are on the call exit the call at this time. Of course, if you're on the moderating team, please stick around. And a recording will be shared afterwards for anyone who's interested. Thanks for your cooperation and for joining the session today. Mike, if you want to move to the next slide, please. Okay, so we have about 25 minutes for the guided discussion, and then we'll move to the open Q&A. The purpose of the session is to gather feedback from municipalities and approving officers, and the discussions will take place in breakout rooms of roughly 10 attendees with one moderator. You'll have about 10 minutes for your breakout room discussions. Before we head into the rooms, there's just a few quick housekeeping notes. So the moderators will open the session. Please try to be brief so everyone has a chance to contribute. You're welcome to share your thoughts verbally or in the breakout room chat if you prefer. please keep your comments focused on the discussion questions because we will have time for other questions and comments during the Q&A session at the end. We'll provide pop-up time calls at 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and 2-minute marks before the room closes. And we have pre-assigned note takers collecting notes for each room to keep things streamlined, who will provide a 1-minute summary from each room after we get back into the main session. And then we'll have an open floor discussion for another 10 minutes or so with a larger group. And Mike is going to post the discussion questions into the chat before we go into the breakout rooms. All right, so next slide, please. So here are the discussion questions. We're interested in hearing your thoughts on how this new system will impact your current process and how we can best support you through this transition. So please take a minute to copy the questions somewhere if you would like to refer to them during the breakout sessions. The moderators will also be popping them into the breakout room chats. So the first question is, will you need to adjust your current SDS and permitting processes to work with the SRS? 2, do you foresee any challenges in integrating the SRS with your existing permitting systems? And how can we best support you during this transition? So we're going to now move into some breakout rooms. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you all had some really good discussions and you got to share your thoughts and your comments. So we're now going to give each of the moderators for each room just 1 minute to give a quick summary of some of the key findings in the rooms. So I guess we'll start with you, Jules.
Yeah, so I was the note taker for breakout room number 1, and we have received some really great feedback around guidance for folks submitting SDSs to the municipalities. That was highlighted as one area where they, get a lot of questions around how to submit forms and questions around the forms. So ensuring that the guidance that the ministry provides is sent out in a timely manner and in a way that supports the municipalities in their ability to kind of forward that guidance over to folks asking questions for them. So I think that was the big theme of our discussion in our breakout room number 1. And then we also had a couple other questions around the other functions of the SRS virtual portal as well. But that's it for me.
Great, thanks. Pat, did you want to give a summary?
Sure. I was in breakout room number 2, and for the first question, the same thing came up that Jules mentioned, is that about 95% of applicants don't have a Schedule 2 use. So just working around how to figure that out with their own systems. And I think the suggestion was that everyone could go to the web app and say, if they say no, then they'll be directed to fill out the paper form, the chef's form, the PDF, and submit that directly to the municipality if they want to track that information still. So that's the one option. And there is certain people were also asking if they will be able to track the status of the SDS review, and yes, but can they also track the status of release notices and other applications? Because they often help applicants when they're submitting these things. So that's something for us to take away for maybe future enhancements. Think about that. And yes, I think that's about it. One of the things they said, how can we be helpful, is just be there and respond. Even if we don't have the answers right away, make sure that we're responding. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks, Pat. George, do you want to give a summary for your room?
Yes, we had a great discussion. But to be honest, I didn't really, get the gist of things. But There was a question about, replacing PDF. At this moment, the PDF is the way transferring info, but how would that be replaced? And also discussions around how would the process change when with the new SRS app, how things would change with the previous ways of doing things.
To address the PDF question, just because it's really quick, the PDF would be completely replaced with the SRS system. So the forms will be entirely done through the system. And as Pat was mentioning, if you are receiving SDS for sites that have not had Schedule 2 uses, they're not required. You don't need to send them to the ministry, but if you want to track them just for your own records, there will still be available the online form that you can save to PDF. So you could potentially have people fill it out that way and then send that back to you specifically. But anything that's going to come to the ministry needs to go through the portal. All right, I think I'm going to ask Brandon if you want to share your room summary.
Yeah, so regarding the first question, we had one comment about how they're currently just updating their development process so they can adapt it into their systems. We also had a discussion about regarding email notifications and the potential of possibly having like a dedicated email available, so you can give it to an applicant, so they can include that in their submissions, an email that can be checked and accessible by the whole permitting team for the municipality. And just highlighting the importance of the municipality kind of being notified of changes and the new system going forward. People talked about not foreseeing too many challenges in integrating the SRS with their existing system. Comment about how they like that it's all kind of in one place now. There's not just various different types of hard copy forms anymore. And hopefully it reduces errors in submissions from having different like formatting issues. And just for how we can best support the transition, there's one comment about having just good FAQs and just being available and accessible for questions that aren't answered by the FAQs.
Great, that's great. All right, so Alana, do you want to give your summary? I think this is the last breakout room, if I'm not wrong. Did I miss anyone?
I hope everyone can hear me. I was the note taker for breakout room 5, and we had a few different municipalities in our group. In regards to the adjustments to the current SDS and permitting processes, our overall feedback was, municipalities knowing that there's going to be an adjustment period, including, what we've heard already from the paper forms to the web app, and just a general continuance of developing an understanding on when an SDS is required and where to direct applicants to submit their SDS. And I guess finding out which BCEID account will get the notifications, but Haley did a great job and answered that question with regards to it would be the email address listed on the SDS form submitted. And in terms of any challenges in integrating the SRS with the existing system, as I mentioned, just a bit of a transition going from paper to online forms. And the overall feedback did also seem as though it was relatively straightforward from what they saw today, which is great. And then in terms of being able to support this transition, as Pat mentioned for her group, we can just hopefully continue being easy to reach. That's it for me.
That's great. Thanks, Alana. So it sounds like we have about 8 minutes if we want to continue discussing as a larger group. If you have any thoughts on the things that people have brought up or any more questions specific to these to these discussion topics, because we will have an open Q&A at the end. We can do that now. So we ask that if you want to ask a question, please type your name in the chat, and Mike will invite you to unmute. If you prefer, you can also drop your discussion, comment, or question directly into the chat as well, and Mike will read it out for you. We're doing it this way instead of the hands up, just because we have a really large group today, and it just helps it go a little bit more smoothly for Mike.
Yeah, so I guess the first question from Ken is, can the ministry give more training on when an SDS is required to be submitted to the ministry and how the exemptions work?
Carrie, feel free to go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I can answer that question maybe. Oh, I should put my camera on too. That's kind of rude. Yeah, so today's webinar is mainly focused on the web app and just getting everybody used to that. But I am actually kind of excited to see people asking about this and part of the Menti question part that we had at the beginning there. This is telling me that perhaps we need to do some specific webinars on the process itself. So we can look at doing some more training specific to the process as opposed to the web app. We just wanted to make sure that we were able to support you when this launches, but we can definitely do that. Plus, we've done a number of updates to our webpage that has a little more of this information. I have received feedback on that as well about the exemptions in particular. We are going to look at expanding on that a little bit on our website as well. But this was great to hear. So I think what we're going to try to do in the near future is maybe have some sessions just on the site identification process itself. So stay tuned. I think that's a great idea. We are long overdue from doing that anyway.
Thanks, Carrie. And also for Ken, we do have a web page for municipalities and approving officers that does give a lot of that information. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do so. You can also send questions to siteid@gov.bc.ca if you have more specific questions about the process, and one of our team members will get back to you.
Okay, the next person was Tracy. Tracy, do you want to unmute and ask a question?
Sure, of course. And it's not so much just a question. I know it's been around a lot of our communications. What everybody's kind of asking out here is, when is an SDS needed? I do find myself at City of Mission and most of our local municipalities, we do have to review SDSs from all of our subdivision development and building permit applications, even if they don't have Schedule 2 use. That's not because we want to track that information or the extra work. It's because the majority of folks have no idea what a contaminated site is. They do not know what a Schedule 2 use is. And there's been numerous times where I've taken a look at an SDS and gone back and said, hey, actually, you do have a history of Schedule 2 use. And they have had to go through that entire process. Without us fully reviewing these SDSs, I do feel that the system does not function as it should if we aren't able to catch that. So I do worry if it's mentioned that, no, you don't have to review the SDSs. No, you legally don't. But I feel like there's an opportunity for these things to slip through the cracks. And oftentimes, whether it's because people don't know or if it's because they have, intentions of, no, we're just going to see if we can flip this by the municipalities. It is a concern of ours for sure.
One thing I just wanted to clarify in there, I apologize if I misspoke earlier. Municipalities do still need to review the SDS. You just don't need to forward them to the ministry if there haven't been any Schedule 2 uses. So in this system, maybe Carrie can speak to how that would actually work. Because we had, I think, originally thought that if the municipality asks whether or not someone's had a Schedule 2 use, then that would be the time when you could direct them to filling out just the web form the online form that's PDFable. But if they don't know and you need to review it to find out, I'm not really sure. Maybe we need to do it through the web app and you just don't submit that to the ministry.
Yeah, I mean, there is, you can always start, and if you say no, I mean, we could still look at you managing those. We just didn't want, if every municipality asked for every person who applied for all of their permits to submit a SDS, whether it was needed or not, that would be a lot of forms that are now being saved within the web app. But if this was good to hear, if this is actually how a lot of the municipalities figure out, does a form actually need to be submitted or not, we can take that away and see what we can do to help accommodate that. But definitely you could start within the system. If you get to the no point, could you still work with them to figure that out? And then once it's determined yes, then you could change the no to a yes and continue to work on it. Or we could, we'll take this away today and we'll look at seeing how best we can accommodate this kind of situation.
Yeah, that's a really good point though. Thanks for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Joanna asks, is it possible to display the site address in both the auto response email and the left column of the SRS?
Yes, so if that's something that would be helpful in the process, our team can look at taking that away and updating both the email with the content and then also the task portion. So I'll mark that down and see what we can do.
Perfect. We're pretty close to time. So I think we're going to run out of time. But what we can do is we can take these questions away and we can provide you with answers in an email at the end. So we can send them out to everybody. The other
Vanessa, just before we go, I just want to make sure, because we've talked about this for most of the time, just want to be clear. An SDS is required if there is one of your permits that is connected to our system and there is a Schedule 2. So you do not have to get SDSs if there is no Schedule 2.
Yes.
Full stop. However, the reason this has been a topic of discussion here is some municipalities like to collect that information for themselves. So you have every opportunity to do that. You can keep that material for your own records. However, legally, an SDS is required for processing if you have a Schedule 2, and one of the triggers that includes municipal permits or applications like zoning and subdivision. So I just wanted to make sure that that's a big distinction between the two.
Maybe we can take the rest of these questions, since a lot of them are not so much to do with our discussion and more to do with general questions about SDS, and we can bring them into our Q&A session. So if we can carry those forward. If you have further thoughts in the coming days that you'd like to share or further questions, please email us for those. And we'll be putting up the email addresses in the next couple slides here. So thanks everyone for your participation. So Mike, I'll just ask you to move to the next slide, please. So just before we get into the open Q&A, I wanted us to pop back over to Menti for a quick poll. So in the web app, notifications on SDS will go to whichever email is identified for the approving authority on the form. And ideally, we'd like to streamline this to one central email point of contact for each municipality. So the question is it possible to have a single email address for your team to receive SRS notifications about site disclosure statements, or will you need multiple contacts? So I'll just give you 30 more seconds or so to fill that in. Okay, it looks like things have slowed down. So it looks like you're pretty evenly split between, yes, you can do it through a single point of contact email, or no, you need multiples. And a couple of you weren't sure. So thank you for that. So the next slide, please. So here are the email addresses that I was speaking about. If we don't get to all of your questions today, or if you have more in the coming days, please feel free to reach out to our team. We'll do our best to get you an answer. If you have questions that are specific to the SRS web app, you can please contact our general information inbox at site@gov.bc.ca. And for any questions that are on the site identification process and site disclosure statements specifically, is site ID@gov.bc.ca. And I'm aware that they're both very similar emails. So just be aware of which one you're sending to, because they do go to different teams. And we now have, let's see, about 5 minutes to go over some questions. If we wanted to maybe carry over some of these other questions, or if you had any other questions you wanted to ask. Maybe 60 minutes we've got.
Yeah, I can continue on with Ken's question that he had asked. Sure. He kind of mentioned on the draft web page under is an STS required. Kind of what Carrie mentioned is that a Schedule 2 is not necessarily needed for an STS, but as a follow-up, he asked, or actually, yeah, there's a follow-up asking. So if there is actually, one second, I'm losing it. The question is whether or not, if they are unknown, whether or not they don't know if there's a Schedule 2, who would be liable in that case? Sorry, there, I found it. What if we don't know if there's a Schedule 2 use? Who's liable? Sorry.
Well, the form is a legal document that an applicant fills out, so it should be the owner or operator of the site. So they would be the one who's responsible for making sure that they filled out the form correctly.
It's to the best of your knowledge. You do not have to verify whether the information is correct or not by doing research and checking. If you happen to know that an answer might be incorrect and you want to work with the applicant to adjust maybe some of their answers, that's perfectly fine. But the main part of your job is just to make sure that the forms are filled out properly, to the right kind of information is in the right fields. And it's not your job to have to go and research and figure out, is every answer true or not? So.
Sian asks, when you say approving officer, are you talking specifically about our municipalities designated subdivision approving officer?
So approving officer, I was just using to refer to anyone who receives and reviews site disclosure statements related to zoning, subdivision, development, or building. So in a municipality, it's entirely possible that there might be multiple people who deal with SDS because they're doing different kinds of permitting. So you could have somebody in your development department looking at SDS for building and development permits. You could have somebody in your zoning department or subdivision doing that. So it's not a specific title for that person. It's just anybody who is doing those kind of applications or permit handling. For example, it could be in Ministry of Transport, it could be approving officer who's looking at subdivision. So it could be municipal or regional. It's just anybody who deals with that kind of permitting.
Okay. Nick asks, is MOTT responsible for this for RD subdivisions?
If you are in a jurisdiction where MOTI deals with subdivision, then yes, they would be responsible for subdivision. They would be the approving authority for that. But for any other kinds of permits that fit into those 4 different types I listed, it would be whoever does those permits. So if the municipality or regional district did zoning or building, then they would handle those ones. And if MOT does the subdivision, they would handle those ones. Oh, I think we are out of time for questions. I think that's all we have time for. If you have additional questions, as I mentioned, please send them to our inboxes in the coming days, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we can. We do have a fairly high volume, so bear with us a little bit on that, but we do try to get it back within a week or 2. Also, feel free to check out our web pages. We have a lot of resources on the web pages, and so hopefully that can also answer some of your questions if you don't get a response immediately. All right, so next slide, please, Mike. So thanks again for all of your really thoughtful questions. They were really helpful. We liked your feedback was really useful as well. As mentioned earlier, a recording will be made available once all of the 3 sessions of the webinar are complete. And before I go over our upcoming webinars, I would like to do one final poll. It looks like people are already in there. So how well did today's session align with your goals and expectations? So it fully met your goals and expectations and you're ready to get started. It met some of your goals and you need some additional guidance on the SRS, or it didn't meet your goals and you didn't receive the info you were looking for. Another few seconds to get your answers in. Great. Sounds like some of you were looking for some other information. Some of you need some additional info, and a few of you did have your goals fully met, so that's good. So the next question is, what topics or expanded content would you like to see included in our training resources or explored in future webinars if we can offer them? And if your goals weren't met, then you can put that information on what you were looking for here as well. Seems like a lot of the information that you're looking for has to do with SDS and how to review them and information on Schedule 2 activities. Someone would like a flow chart showing the process and the stakeholders. More support and resources for smaller municipalities. Info on how long it takes to approve a development on a contaminated site and what's involved. How to identify Schedule 2 sites. More info on reviewing SDS. The process. And looking for answers on questions that are coming up but not aligned with this particular presentation. Some clarification on some wording, or when to check an SDS for completeness, and info on exemptions. That's great. That's really, really helpful information. And like Carrie was mentioning, I really do hope that we can bring this forward and have some more sessions that are more specific to reviewing SDS and the role of the municipality. I think that would be really useful. So thanks again for all your feedback. All right, next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we'll be offering some training sessions this summer that are focused on the external user form and application submission process. These sessions are designed for external applicants and will provide a step-by-step walkthrough on how to complete and submit forms, including the SDS, and how to apply for contaminated site services, such as release notices and certification applications. In addition, we will be offering one more session of today's training in September. We were thinking it would likely cover the same content, but wouldn't include the discussion period. And if you or your colleagues are interested in attending either of the upcoming sessions, please ensure you're subscribed to our site remediation news webpage, which will allow you to receive notifications as soon as the session dates are announced. And subscribing will also keep you informed about when the web app and update web pages go live, and if we do hold future sessions specific to SDS processing that aren't specific to the web app. So if we hold some of this suggested training on how to process and review SDS for municipalities, we would definitely post it here. The final thing I wanted to say about the sessions this summer is for the external user training, once those dates go live, it would be useful if municipalities want to share that information with applicants if they're looking for information on how to do that. Next slide, please. And that brings us to the end of our session. So I wanted to thank everyone for your participation and your valuable input during today's session. And if you have any feedback for today's session, please let us know at siteid@gov.bc.ca. And as I mentioned, if you do have any feedback or questions specific to the SRS, please send it to site@gov.bc.ca. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.